how much more does a $15,000 car cost compared to a $10,000 car? It's more than $5,000 because the taxes, insurance, and loan interests are higher. But more importantly, if you took that $5,000 and bought Tesla stock at the beginning of the year, it would be worth $40,000 now. If you bought QuantumScape, it would be worth $50,000. And if you bought Blink or NIO, it would be worth $90,000. Those were some of this year's hottest stock performers, with returns ranging from 700% to 1,700%. But what if you only got 15% a year? It turns out that the most important thing is how long you invest, not how much you invest or the rate of return. To illustrate, here's a hypothetical story about Sam the Saver and Paul the Partier. Now you know where I'm going to go with this story, but bear with me. This is a hypothetical story with real math. So Sam and Paul both make $30,000 a year with $20,000 in expenses, giving them $10,000 a year in discretionary income, or about $833.33 a month. Sam sets up a automatic transfer. That $833 a month goes into a savings and investment program, returning 15% annually, compounded monthly, which is actually 16%. Paul the Partier, of course, just wants to enjoy life. He's got a nice car, nice apartment, nice clothes. At the end of 10 years, he hasn't saved anything. At the end of 10 years, Sam the Saver has saved $100,000. But with the interest, it's actually $230,000. So that's what they did from age 25 to 35. Now, they got sick of doing what they were doing for a living. They went on to other things. They didn't see each other for 30 years. Now, at age 65, Sam bumps into Paul and says, "Hey, haven't seen you. What have you been doing since back in the day?" Paul says, "Well, I partied for a little while longer. Another 20 years, actually. And then I decided to get serious about saving. And for the last 10 years, I've been doing what you did back in the day. I've been putting away $10,000 a year at 15% return. So I put away $100,000 and I now have $230,000 for retirement. So that's really not that great, because if I live 20 years, that's $11,500 a year, not even $1,000 a month. And let me interrupt the story for a second here. Think about inflation. 30, 40 years from now, $1,000 a month is not going to be much money. Be like if you can rent a garbage can to live in for $1,000 a month. Anyway, back to the story. So Paul says, "What about you, Sam the Saver? What have you been doing for the last 30 years?" And Sam says, "Well, I kind of turned into Paul the Partier. I've just been enjoying life. I was working, making money, but my income and expenses were always the same. I haven't added anything to my savings investment program since that first 10 years. Of course, I haven't had to touch that initial 10 years of savings either, so it's been sitting in the program for 30 years now." So Paul says, "Well, Sam, if you don't mind me asking, how much do you have saved for retirement?" And Sam says, "Well, it's a little over $20 million. Paul says, "What? Wait a minute. We both partied for 30 years. We both saved for 10 years. You have like 100 times as much money as me." Sam says, "Yeah, I get, if I live 20 years, I'll be getting $1 million a year. That's about $83,000 a month, $83,333 a month for the next 20 years." So the moral of the story is, if you party for 30 years and then save for 10, or you save for 10 and then party for 30, you are going to have a much much, much larger amount of money if you take that second route. Now, I did not add taxes and inflation into those figures, and believe me, that makes a big difference. That $20 million can get down to about $5 million very quickly with taxes and inflation. I'm going to go to the investment calculator, the compound interest calculator now, and I'm going to show you some of the math, what happens with different return rates and different monthly savings amounts.